Hi, I'm Madison. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have 5 romance, this is 10. 5 romances that I wish I could read again. Over the years I've read a lot of romance books, and there are some books that I just are like absolute favorites of mine that I just wish I could reread again and again and again. Like I wish I could also just reread them from like the very first time and just experience that. And so I'm going to give you 5 of those books today. There are definitely like more than this that I would call like, you know, maybe at some point I'll do like my top 10 like all-time favorite romances, but these are 5 romance books that I absolutely adore the ever-loving shit out of, that I would 100% recommend to you no matter what, that you should read. And I've kind of made it so you get a little bit of everything from this, so they're not all the same genre, all the same X, Y, or Z, so everyone gets a little bit of something in this. And so without further ado, let me start. First things first, I'm going to say number 1 is going to be Lessons in Corruption by Gianna Darling. This book like changed my life when I read it. It was my very first MC romance, which is Motorcycle Club. And after reading this, I made this book my entire personality. I was obsessed with it. I did everything with it. It was just like the best thing since sliced bread, basically. Which I don't really get that as a saying, but that's been the point. This follows Cress and King, and it's also an age gap too. It was like one of my first age gap romances, and also like taboo because student teacher trope is also in this, which is like something that I normally would have been like, ew, no, but loved. So you're following Cress and King. This takes place in Canada, and you're following Cressida. She's in the process of getting divorced from her husband, and she is a teacher at a high school, and so she ends up moving away from her husband, you know, trying to like start her life on her own. And, you know, in her first day in this small town, she ends up meeting this guy at a bar, and he's like this guy on a motorcycle, and they end up hitting it off, and she ends up kind of starting to date him. And then the school year starts, and this guy that she's been dating turns up in her classroom, and she's like, what the actual fuck? And this guy is King. He is her student. He's 18, FYI, but he's her student. He's a senior in high school, and he wants to still be with her. It's actually a large age gap between the two of them. I think she's only like 25 or something, like 26, 27. So it's not like a massive age gap between them, like probably like 8 years, I think it is. But it's their romance, and King is part of the Fallen MC. He's the heir to the Fallen Motorcycle Club, and the Fallen are like the biggest motorcycle club in Canada, and they're the people that everyone fears and everyone like stays away from. And so King is the heir to that. His dad is like the head of MC, and so it's their romance. And I just love this because King was just so devoted to Cressida, and he was so like, Cressida also just hadn't, like, her romance with her husband, she was so unloved for years and was made to feel like she wasn't deserving of love, and that the things that she wanted out of a romance like were taboo. And so being with King, she was able to realize that like it's okay to like have sexual desire and want pleasure and like all these different kind of things, and like that she is this beautiful woman who like deserves love. And King is the one who shows her that, and like shows her that, like, you know, she's allowed to have her wants and her needs, and like treats her like a fucking queen. Like literally the way that he like treats her like a queen is just like standards. Like, you like, oh my god, I would divorce my if I had a husband, I would divorce him if King came to life, because I would marry King instead. What a weird analogy I'm giving you guys right now, but it's true. I fucking love this book to death, and I would just recommend to everyone, if you haven't tried MC romances before, it's also a really great place to start, because you kind of learn what an MC is and all that kind of stuff, and like all the different terminologies, because Cressida is also learning kind of like how it works too. And they also bond over like English poetry and like the like literature and things like that, because she's an English teacher, and then he also loves like English is like his favorite subject. And so they bond a lot over that, and like over Paradise Lost is like a massive thing in this book, which is just so adorable, and I fucking loved that. He also like gives her an apple every single day with like a piece of poetry that he wrote her. Oh, swoon. Honestly, it's just so good. So I highly, highly recommend this if you haven't read it. Then I've got The Bully by Sophie Lark. This is one of my favorite Sophie Lark books. I would say The Bully and Yvonne are my 2 favorite Sophie Lark books, hands down. But I'm going to do The Bully today because it's one that I always think about, and it's just like such an iconic book, and it also is I think it was one of my first like real bully romances, and I had previously thought before reading this that I didn't like that trope, and I thought that it was just something that was like a no-no zone for me. And then I read this and I ate my words like Sunday dinner. Why am I giving you guys all these like it's not an alliteration, all these like similes and shit today? None of them make any sense, but it's fine. But The Bully it's a mafia romance too. So it takes place, basically the Kingmaker series takes place at Kingmakers, which is this elite college for children of the mafia to go to in order to become mafia heirs and mafia like everything. So it's like, it's a mafia college, and it's really, really dope and really, really sick and cool, and I fucking love it to death. And technically, you know, it's a series, like you should read in order. This is book 3, but you can, you know, read them individually if you want. They are all standalone romances. But I do have an entire video that's like, you know, a guide to reading Sophie Lark if you want to check it out. But I fucking love The Bully. And so this is Kat and Dean's romance. And Dean is someone who is like the anti-hero. He's someone who everyone fucking hates. He was a dick in the first 2 books in this series. No one liked him. He was just a little shit. And then you read this book here and you think, oh, why would I like him? And then you read it and you go, I love him. He's the best man I've ever read in my entire life. It's just how that works. So Kat and Dean, basically, Dean is one of the mafia heirs, and Kat's not an heir because her brother's the heir, but she's at the mafia college to train anyway, and I think she's part of the, like, there's different like factions within the college, and she's part of like the spy faction basically, and so that's what she's training in, which is so cool and so dope. Like, she's trying to become like a mafia spy, dudes. And so Dean ends up finding out one of her secrets, and as a result he ends up blackmailing her with it and making her like his submissive and his like plaything, so she has to like be subservient to him throughout the book, and that's like what their relationship is at the beginning. And this subservient kind of relationship that they have turns into like a legitimate romance as the book goes on. It's so good and so unique, and like, it is a bully romance, but you quickly like latch onto the fact that like he just wants to be loved, and Kat sees that in him and gives him the love and the attention and everything that like he doesn't get. And I just adored it. Also, they have to like sneak around and stuff because everyone hates him and she's not supposed to be with him because of that. And there's like, this has some of the hottest sex scenes in it that I've read in my entire life. Like, I've read a lot of fucking smutty books. This book, hands down, has the most iconic sex scenes in it. If I have to be, I'm going to be flat out honest. It really, really does. There's a sex scene in it with her stroking him that is just like iconic as hell. And it's unlike anything I've ever read before. And so I highly recommend this. It's so good, and I just love the gothic atmosphere of it, so it's one of my personal favorites, and I would definitely recommend it. Then, clearly, because how could I not put an Omegaverse on here, we've got Baby and the Late Night Howlers, which I do love the other books that Catherine Moon has done, but Baby has such a special place in my heart because it was my first real Omegaverse that I read, and it introduced me to the whole genre, and it really just changed everything for me because Omegaverse has quickly now become my like comfort genre, which is not a normal thing that people say, but for some reason it's my normal. But Baby Night and Howlers, it's a Omegaverse, and so if you don't know what a Omegaverse is, I have an entire video explaining a Omegaverse, which is, it's a terrifying video, but it's great. It's terrifying, but it's great, so I'll you know, check that out. But this follows Baby, who's an Omega, but she doesn't know that she's an Omega when the book starts off. She thought she was a Beta, and one day she ends up perfuming and realizes later in, like, she's in like her early 20s, she's finding out that she is an Omega, and Omegas are very coveted, and so as a result, she now needs a pack, and she ends up meeting this guy one night, you know, the night that she finds out that she's an Omega, this Beta guy, and she's like, she falls quickly in love with him because of that, and so she ends up wanting to join his pack and be his pack's Omega. But his pack is kind of reluctant to have her as an Omega because they've been so burnt in the past, and they're not like other packs that exist because they're actually an MC as well. And so they're not like one of the billionaire alpha packs that exist, because every Omega wants to be like part of like a billionaire pack who like gets treated like a princess and has like all this money, and that's not like what the Howlers have. And so the Howlers are kind of like disrespected by everyone because they're like an MC pack, but Baby absolutely loves them and wants to be with them, and it's her kind of showing them that like even though they are kind of like the outcasts, that like she chose them and she wants to be with them, and you know, that whole relationship with it. This is really smutty. It's, I would say, 70% smut, 30% plot. The other books in this series are more plot focused, but I love this so much, and so it's definitely one of my big recommendations, and it's a great beginner Omegaverse for people to kind of learn about the genre and kind of understand how it works. So I'm always going to recommend it. It's one of my favorites, and I wish I could reread it because, you know, just to be able to experience Omegaverse for the first time again would be fucking phenomenal. Then we have a surprise on here, which I don't think a lot of people would realize, and that's going to be Drive Me Wild by Melanie Harlow. This is just one of my favorite small town romances that I've read. If you liked It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, you will love this book. I loved It Happened One Summer, but I actually love Drive Me Wild even more. Like, it's just such a phenomenal romance, and it is just like, when I think of small town and like I have a mental hierarchy of what's like I love for small town romances, like this is like one of the like most quintessential ones, like in my opinion, and not a lot of people have read it, so it's kind of like a hidden gem in my opinion, and I want more people to pick it up, so that's why I'm putting it here. And I wish I could reread it for the first time because it was just such a great time, and I constantly think about this book. Like, I'm always thinking about it. So you're following Blair and Griffin, and Blair is a hot mess express. So Blair comes from a very rich family. She's an heiress, but her dad, their accountant, like did something, and so they kind of like lost all their money. And Blair's not upset about that because Blair's always actually wanted to be a baker and own her own bakery shop, but she's never been able to because her parents wouldn't really let her do that because she was an heiress. And so what she ends up doing is once they lose all their money, she packs all her shit into her car and she decides that she's going to, you know, drive cross country and go to this small town and start her business and do all that kind of stuff. The only problem is that Blair is a fucking awful driver. Like, Blair is the worst driver you will ever meet in your entire life, and she crashes her car. And she crashes it in this random small town at a diner. And in the diner is this Griffin, and Griffin comes out and he owns the auto mechanic shop in the small town, and he ends up offering to help fix her car. The only problem is that Blair can't afford to fix it, so he lets her work for him in order to like pay it back. But Blair, again, still has no fucking money, so she can't has no money to like stay anywhere in this small town. So she lets her like crash with him too. So she basically moves into like the auto mechanic shop to like the flat above it, and they become like roommates, and it's their romance, and it's hilarious. Like, it's Grumpy Sunshine. He's such a Griffin is such a grump. He doesn't really want to fall in love with her. He wants something to do with her. But she's like in his space, and she's like this rich girl who doesn't really have the best street smarts at all and doesn't know how to do certain things, but she's such a great time, and she makes him like, they fall in love, and it's so great. It's so much fun, and it's just like, she's kind of like an Elle Woods, like Legally Blonde vibe, because she's a really fucking smart person. It's just, she just doesn't have the proper life experience to know certain things. And she makes everyone in the small town like fall in love with her with like her baked goods, which is so adorable, and I fucking love. And also, this book was surprisingly spicy, which I was not expecting. Like, they role play. This was my first Melanie Harlow book, and I've read more from her since reading this book. And she's one of my favorite authors to read because she's a small town romance author, but she's on the rom-com side of it. And a lot of times when you read small town romances, they tend to have a bit more of like a serious tone to them, I find. Melanie Harlow is just like straight up fun rom-com small town spice, and that's just what's so unique. And I love this book. I wish I could reread it because it was just so iconic and it's so many good quotes. Like, I fucking loved it to death. And then before I get into the fifth and final book on this, I'm going to reveal another reason why I did this video, and that is because I'm actually partnering with Eternal Embers, who is a book box subscription company, and I'm actually creating my own book box with them. If you watch this video, like, you know, 3 months down in the line, this is going to be irrelevant to you because you won't be able to purchase the book box anymore, but I'll have all the information here because I don't have it when I'm filming it, but I'm doing my own book box with them, and I'm going to be creating custom, you know, editions of these books. So the first 4 books that I mentioned, which is Drive Me Wild, Lessons in Corruption, The Bully, and Baby in the Late Night Howlers, are the 4 books that are going to be in my book box. And these are going to be custom editions that you can buy with like exclusive covers. And so I'll have all the information if you want to get these exclusive books here and also down in the description box, so you guys can read that, which is super, super exciting. I'm so excited because like these are some of my favorite books, and I'm so excited to have like these fun, discreet versions of them that I like own on my shelf. And like, I'm a huge collector. You guys know I'm a huge collector. Like, you can't see my bookshelves because they don't exist anymore. But like if you looked at my bookshelves, like I'm just such a huge book box special edition person, and to be able to partner with Eternal Embers and create these editions was just like such a dream come true and such like a hallmark thing for myself that I had to mention it. So we're here to hereby interrupt this video to show you the special editions that I'm talking about. Okay, so I literally just got these in, so I wanted to show you them since I have them physically. These are just the proofs. This is Baby and Late Night Howlers. It is beautiful foiling, and then I picked this quote on the back. And then if you can see, it has her jacket on it that she gets given, which is so cute. These are all going to be signed, but they also have their own like interior art as well. And then each chapter also is designed, so that's like Baby's chapter design. So after Baby, we then have got Drive Me Wild by Melanie Harlow. And here's the, I literally love this quote on the back I chose for this one. It's so, so good. I'm in love with it. And again, interior, and then there's also art. Well, not art, but there's like design chapters as well for this one. And then also with Lessons in Corruption, it is also foiled on the front and the back. Oh my god, these are so good. Obviously there's there, and then we've got also another more designed chapters. And then this is the only one that doesn't have the detailings on it because it's going to be coming with like a spot gloss, so it'll be like black gloss that is on this instead. But this is the bully, and there'll be black gloss as well on the back, which is really cool. And it's also designed on the inside and for the chapters. And then here's what the spine looks like. That's the bully. These are just the proofs, so they're not like perfect. Lessons in Corruption, so the spine here is also shiny. Drive Me Wild, it's white. That's not a shiny spine. And then Baby, I really think that Baby is like hands down my favorite of the covers. It's just like so perfect. And yeah, these are the 4 editions that go on sale tomorrow for general access, which is super, super exciting. Yes, okay, the last book I want to talk about, it's going to be pretty fucking obvious, and that's going to be Hate by Tate James. I love this series so much. So much. I read this book 2 years ago, and it's still one of my favorite books that I've read in my entire life. So this is a reverse harem series. So it's one girl in a romance with 3 guys. And I think this is one of my first reverse harems that I actually really read. If I'm thinking correctly, I think it was. And it just changed everything for me. So like how Baby was like a life-changing book because it introduced me to a megaverse, Tate James really changed my life because she introduced me to why choose reverse harems. And so since this, like, why choose like is also a comfort genre for me, which is another weird thing to say because why choose someone's comfort genre? But it is. It's one of my favorite genres to read, hands down, when it comes to romance books. But the Madison Kate Quartet, which is 4 books, which is also another thing. Like, I normally just read standalone romances, and so to read, Tate is one of the only like series author that I also read from. But Tate James has the worst cliffhangers that you'll read in your entire life. Like, her cliffhangers make you want to like throw yourself off a cliff. They're fucking awful. I love them, but they're fucking awful. Which is why you kind of like, she's like one of the most bingeable authors to read, and I won't read her books unless an entire series is out because of how awful her cliffhangers are, FYI. But Madison Kate Quartet follows Madison Kate, MK, and when it starts off, it takes place in a year in the past, and it's on this night where Madison Kate ends up getting framed for this like gang riot, and as a result of being framed for it, she ends up having to like go abroad for a year. And then when she comes back with a vengeance, and that's to get revenge on the 3 guys that she thinks are the reason why she ended up being framed for the riot. And the only problem is, when she returns home and goes to her mansion, she finds out that her dad has gotten engaged, okay? And the woman he's gotten engaged to has a son, and that son is now living in the house with his 2 best friends. And who do you think those 3 guys are? That's right, the 3 guys that she thinks framed her on riot night. So she's now living with these 3 guys that she absolutely hates and wants to get revenge on. So she makes it her life's mission to fuck with them. But they also, in turn, decide to make it their mission to fuck with her as well. And so it's like, it's a huge enemies lovers romance across the board with her and the 3 guys. But also there's a mystery in it because it comes down to, okay, who actually did frame her for Riot Night. Like, what actually happened 1 year ago, and how does that pertain to nowadays, especially because Madison Kate ends up having a stalker. And so it's also like, who's this stalker? Like, what's going on there? And it's really, really fun. So what's really cool is that it's a dark romance with like the 3 guys are also like in a gang as well, and they're like their own gang, but there's also like an MC club vibe to it, and it's like a small town, but they're like they're also all like, you know, one of the guys is a billionaire, Madison Kate is a billionaire, and so you kind of get everything in it. It's just like, it's fucking catnip, and it's like trope galore. So I love it to death. God, if I could reread that series, that's a series, if I could read that series for the first time, I would like be so fucking elated. But also like, it's one of the few book series that I've kind of like, me mentally, I'm like, I could reread this series. And I don't normally say that, because like, I don't reread books. The only books I've ever like reread, to be quite honest with you, are Sarah J Maas, and that's because I reread them specifically for, like, you know, when the next book come out, to do like analysis and fantasy stuff with it. But to reread like a romance book is not something that I've done since like I was like in primary school reading Sarah Dessen, you know, so it's a big thing for me to say that. And yeah, so those are 5 books that I would sell my soul if I could read them for a first time again, and they're like some of my favorite reads. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like button down below if you want to see more of me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and until next time, thanks so much everyone, bye bye.